from his people, the righteous ones, from the best of the best basically. And he told them that you should fast, and you should purify yourselves, and you should purify your clothing, for we are going to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they did as they were commanded, and they went with Musa. فَخَرَجَ بِهِمْ مُوسَى إِلَى طُورِ سِينَاء لِمِيقَاتِ رَبِّهِ. So Musa took them to the Mount of Sinai, or 55. اطلب لنا نسمع كلام ربنا. They said to Musa, فقال لموسى اطلب لنا نسمع كلام ربنا. Ask Allah that we can hear His speech. فقال لهم افعل. So فلما دنا موسى إلى طور سيناء من الجبل وقع عليه عمود الغمام وتغشى الجبل كله فدخل في الغمام وقال لقوم ادنوا فدنوا حتى دخلوا في الغمام وخروا سجدا وكان موسى إذا كلمه ربه وقع على وجهه نور ساطع لا يستطيع أحد من بني آدم أن ينظر إليه. So they wanted to hear the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they are not capable because they were not given the nubuwwah like Musa alayhi salam. So Musa said to come close, and they came close. And then they fell into sujood. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He spoke to Musa, basically Musa's face became so bright and so full of light that no one from the children of Adam, no human being can look at him directly. It's too much of a light, too powerful. فضرب دونهم الحجاب وسمعه وهو يكلم موسى يأمره وينهاه. So al-hijab was put between them and Musa, between the 70 of the best of Banu Israel and Musa, like a barrier basically. And they heard Musa speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was telling him, ordering him, commanding him, and telling him what to be forbidding. وَاسْمَعْهُمُ اللَّهِ, and Allah allowed them to hear. أَنِّي أَنَا اللَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا أَنَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala let them hear that verily I am Allah, there is no one worthy of worship except me. أخرجتكم من أرض مصر بيد شديد فاعبدوني ولا تعبدوا غيري. I took you out from the land of Egypt with my powerful hand, so worship me and don't worship no one else besides me. فلما فرغ موسى وانكشف الغمام وأقبل إليهم فقالوا. So after all of this, they heard Musa speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the clouds were removed, the barrier, the hijab was removed, and Musa came back to them. They said to him, لَن نُؤْمِنَ لَكَ حَتَّى نَرَى اللَّهَ جَهْرَةً. We won't believe in you until we see Allah ayanan. Basically, jahratan means like outwardly, openly see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even after all of this they just witnessed, they're still asking Musa, they want to see Allah. ليعلم أن المراد الجهر ليعلم أن المراد منه العيان. يعني basically physically looking at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فأخذتم الصاعقة أي الموت. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down death upon them. And some say it was a fire or a lightning. قيل نار جاءت من السماء فأحرقتهم. And it was a fire or a light came down from the lightning came down from the sky and it burned them. وأنتم تنظرون أي ينظر بعضكم إلى بعض حين أخذتكم. Like Allah allowed them to see one another as the death was coming to them or lightning was striking them. Some say one by one. وقيل تعلمون والنظر يكون بمعنى العلم. يعني meaning that you will know, so that you will know. فلما هلكوا جعل موسى يبكي ويتضرع ويقول ماذا أقول لبني إسرائيل. Then when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took them, Musa alayhi salam, he started to cry and he humbled himself and he bowed in prostration to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he said, what shall I say to the children of Israel? إذا أتيتهم وقد أهلكت خيارهم. When I come to them, when he goes back to the children, Banu Israel, while they're waiting for Musa alayhi salam, and he comes in and tells them that the best of you, these 70 men, the most best worshippers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are gone. How can I face them? لو شئت أهلكتهم من قبل وإياي أتهلكنا بما فعل السفهاء منا. If you willed, you could have destroyed me and them before. Do you destroy us or take us to account for what the foolish ones are doing, the sufaha? فلم يزل يناشد ربه حتى أحياهم الله تعالى رجلا بعد ما ماتوا يوما وليلة. He said that Musa kept making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, calling on Allah, praying to Allah, and Allah resurrected every one of them throughout the day, one by one, the 70, He put them all back to life. And this is one of the stories in Surah Al-Baqarah, the 5 stories when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings life back from the death. Does anybody know the other 4? 5 آيات أن الله أحيا الموتى في سورة البقرة. What's the other ones? Anybody know Surah Al-Baqarah? Which one? ما تذكر الآن. طيب 55 عزير ليس في ممكن ايه صح، بس اللي اذكر في سورة البقرة ترى الذين خرجوا من ديارهم وهم ألوف حذر الموت قال لهم الله موتوا ثم أحياهم. So the 1,000 people, yeah, Surah Al-Baqarah only now. Surah Al-Baqarah, yeah, 5. And Ashab al-Kahf, they actually were sleeping, subhanAllah. So it's a little bit different. طيب, so this is the one, children of Israel, when Allah, they asked to see Allah, Allah caused them to die and bring them back to life. And then the thousands that were going out of their houses and they were alive, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caused them to die and He brought them back to life. أو كالذي مر على قرية وهي خاوية على عروشها قال أن يحيي هذه الله بعد موتها فماتوا الله 100 عام ثم بعث. The one, he was passing by a town and he said, that was like destroyed basically or desolate. He said, how can Allah bring life back to death? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caused him to die for 100 years and resurrected him. That's number 3. Number 4, the children of Israel, what is it? فقلنا اضربوه بعدها كذلك يحيي الله الموتى ويريكم آياتي لعلكم تعقلون. When the murderer, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him to be hit with the jild of the baqar, right? And He made him to come alive and say who was the one who killed him, right? That's number 4, I think. And number 5, when Ibrahim alayhi salam, he said, وإذ قال إبراهيم ربي أرني كيف تحيي الموتى قال أولم تؤمن قال بلى ولكن ليطمئن قلبي. When Ibrahim alayhi said, he said, how do you bring the life back from the death? And Allah said, don't you believe? He said, of course I believe, but so I can have more iman in my heart. And then Allah showed him how to, He killed the birds and brought them back to life. So those are the 5 stories in Surah Al-Baqarah. طيب. ثم بعثناكم أي أحييناكم. So after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he resurrected them, He called them back to life. والبعث إثارة شيء عن محله يقال بعث البعير وبعث النائم فأنبعث. It means basically when you say ba'atha is like when you get up from your place. So when the camel or the cow or something is sitting down and it comes up, in ba'atha, right? Or if you are moving from a place of lower to higher, that's like in ba'atha. So basically resurrection, yawm al-ba'ath, when we get out of the grave, when we come up out of the grave, right? And also in this case, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is taking their souls temporarily. He caused them to die and He brings them back. But this is not the Maut al-Kubra, when they will go and not come back. Their ajal is still appointed for them. من بعد موتكم قال قتادة أحياهم ليستوفوا بقية آجالهم وأرزاقهم ولو ماتوا بآجالهم لم يبعثوا إلى يوم القيامة. So Qatada rahimahullah ta'ala, he said that Allah brought them back to life to complete their determined life, meaning that they have to finish their rizq and their time period that is on this earth, and then they will be dying the true death and not be resurrected until Yawm al-Qiyamah. But once the true death happens, there's no coming back. So these stories we mentioned, it's a temporary death Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given as a miracle, and He brought them back. Just like when Isa alayhi salam brings back the maut also, right? Allah gave them temporary death and He allowed them to live and complete their lives. So what is the reason for this? لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ, right? Basically, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did all of this even after they committed shirk with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They disobeyed Allah, they questioned Allah. Allah forgave them, and He forgave them, and He forgave them. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. So if you do a ma'asiyah, if you fall into sin, if you make a mistake, and you make tawbah, you should be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And how do we do shukr? What's the shukr? بالعمل. طيب هذه أحد الأركان. في 3 أركان بالشكر. 3 pillars for shukr. شكر توبة في أكثر من 4 أركان. بس في شكر بيش. أول شيء باللسان وإيش؟ بالقلب وبالجوارح. Right? So shukr, thankfulness is with the tongue, in the heart, and in your outward deeds and your actions. Right? If you just say thank you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, alhamdulillah, but you don't feel it in your heart, or your actions go against what you're saying, that's not true shukr. True shukr means that you use the gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you in His obedience. في طاعته واجتناب معصيته. Obeying Allah and staying away from His prohibitions. That's true shukr. Right? Because, for example, لله المثل الأعلى, there's no muqarna with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But say, for example, you have a wife or a spouse. A wife has a husband or whatever, so I won't be discriminating. Right? And she or he, they say thank you to one another all the time. Right? But every time the wife asks the husband to do something, he doesn't do it. Or every time the husband asks the wife to do something, she doesn't do it. Or she doesn't pay attention and she doesn't care. Right? Is that really saying thank you? Is that really being appreciative? No, you're missing the arkan. So shukr comprises not just lip service but action. وظللنا عليكم الغمام وأنزلنا عليكم المن والسلوى كلوا من طيبات ما رزقناكم وما ظلمونا ولكن كانوا أنفسهم يظلمون. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this time period, like I said, they're in the tih, they're going out in the desert wandering, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He forgave them, He accepted the tawbah, He forgave them again for this, su'ul mu'amala, asking, kind of challenging to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah forgave them for that after. And then even with this, He provided for them. He put clouds above them as they were going through the desert. So the clouds, what do they do when you're going through the desert? الغمام السحاب ايش يسوي في الصحراء؟ اي ما عرفوا طريق بس اي ظل يعني ايش يسوي لهم؟ What does the clouds provide for people? Shade, yes. And coolness, right? It cools down the temperature a little bit when you have clouds. So Allah Azza wa Jalla in His rahmah, He even after their disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He still provided with them with clouds to go through the desert in their punishment period. So they won't get overly hot. In the desert there's no refuge. So He has clouds to cool them down and to put shade above them from the burning sun. And He sent down blessed food for them. Al-manna wa salwa. We're going to talk about what they are inshallah. And He says, كُلُوا مِن طَيِّبَاتِ مَا رَزَقْنَاكُمْ. Eat from that which we have provided for you. وَمَا ظَلَمُونَا وَلَكِنْ كَانُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ يَظْلِمُونَ. And they did not do injustice or oppression to us, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they were really truly oppressing themselves. So هذه في تيه يقيكم محر الشمس والغمام من الغم وأصله تغطية والستر. So al-ghumam is from the covering. It means to cover up basically. So the clouds are giving them cover and shelter and keeping it cool. سمي السحاب غماما لأنه يغطي وجه الشمس. And it's called sihab or ghumam because it covers the shams. It kind of blocks the sun. وذلك أنه لم يكن لهم في تيه كن يسترهم. They didn't have anything in their wandering in the desert, something that can cover them or protect them from the sun. So Allah in His mercy, He sent the sihab and the ghumam to cover them. فشكوا إلى موسى. And even with this, they complained to Musa. فأرسل الله تعالى غماما أبيض رقيقا أطيب من غمام المطر. So after they complained about being in the sun in the desert, Allah He sent these beautiful clouds, light, white, beautiful, and it protected them from the sun, and it provided for them coolness. 57. وجعل لهم عمودا من نور يضيء لهم الليل إذ لم يكن لهم قمر. And even in the night time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took care of them. He sent some kind of like rays of light if the moon was not there, to show them the way in the night time. وَأَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكُمُ الْمَنَّ وَالسَّلْوَى. And also in the tea, in the wandering, in the expulsion in the desert. الأكثر على المنّ هو الترجين. وقال مجاهد هو الشيء كصمغ كان يقع على أشجار طعمه كالشهد. وقال وهب هو الخبز الرقاق. قال الزجاج جملة المن يمن الله به من غير تعب. So the different tafsir of it, it's basically manna is like something like honey or syrup or sap coming from like the trees. Basically it's very sweet and very delicious, right? That's one tafsir. And some say it's like a special bread, a sweet bread that is filling and provides all the nutrition from a certain grain. And other scholars, they say that it's basically any type of food that you can get without having to put effort in getting it, right? It's a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يمن عليه. And then Sufyan an Abdul Malik an Amr ibn Hurayth عن سعيد بن زيد رضي الله عنه قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم الكمأة من المن وماؤها شفاء للعين. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he said that truffles, it's also something that grows, it's like a fungus or something that grows. Truffles are very expensive and they're one of the most expensive foods we can have now. But the Prophet said that that is from the man. And also it's a shifa for the ayn. It's a healing for the ayn if you have some problems with your eyes. فكان هذا المن كل ليل يقع على أشجارهم مثل الثلج لكن الإنسان منهم ساعة لكل إنسان منهم ساعة. So every night it would come down like snowflakes basically, and for every person they would have basically like a bucket full. فقالوا يا موسى قتلنا هذا المن بحلاوته فادع لنا ربك أن يطعمنا اللحم. So they said like basically we had enough of this sweet man, call Allah to send down some meat. فأنزل الله تعالى عليهم السلوى وهو الطائر يشبه السماني. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He sent down birds which are close to what we call quails today. That type of bird, if you go look at what a quail is. So some of the most delicious meat Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down. So they had the sweetness of the bread and the sweetness of the manna, and they had also delicious meat to go with it. The best food. And it would keep them full actually. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He would send it down. كان الله ينزل عليهم المن والسلوى كل صباح من طلوع الفجر إلى طلوع الشمس. It would send it down between the rising of the Fajr until the sunrise, basically, shuruq. Right? So this is a blessed period that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send it down, and they can collect it anytime between those two periods. Except on the Sabt, because they weren't supposed to do any type of actions or work that day for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they would abstain. So that day He would not send it down, so they would collect more the day before for them to carry on through Saturday. وإذ كان يوم الجمعة أخذ كل واحد منهم ما يكفيه ليومين. So on يوم الجمعة they would take double basically to keep them for Saturday. طيب وإذ قلنا كلوا أي وقلنا لهم كلوا من طيبات حلالات ما رزقناكم, that which we have provided for you. ولا تدخروا فقالوا فقطع الله ذلك عنهم ودود وفسد ما ادخروا. They were not allowed to store it basically. Like Allah gave it to them fresh every day. So they shouldn't keep it for long periods of time. They shouldn't be greedy and take more than what they need so they can store it for a long time, because it would be caused to corrupt. وما ظلمونا ولكن كانوا أنفسهم يظلمون أي وما بخسوا بحقنا ولكن كانوا أنفسهم يظلمون باستحجابهم عذابي وقطع مادة الرزق الذي كان ينزل عليهم بلا مؤونة في الدنيا ولا حساب في العقبة. Basically that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was generous with them, and they did not do anything of injustice towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they did injustice for themselves because one, they called for punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because they asked to see Allah without right to do so, right? And two, because they kept complaining about the food that they were given, and they were storing it when they're not supposed to be storing it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He prevented them from that. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he said, لولا بنو إسرائيل لم يخبث الطعام ولم يخنز اللحم ولولا هواء لم تخن أنثى زوجها الدهر. Basically, there's a hadith, the Prophet said that if Banu Israel did not, keep storing the meat when Allah and the manna that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told them not to do so, food would never spoil after that. But because of their disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, food spoils now. Like we don't have any type of food that lasts so long except certain things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put blessing in it, like al-asad, right? And very few things basically. But in general, especially meats, if they're not preserved correctly, they can go bad. And that's because of the actions of Banu Israel. وَادْخُلْنَا ادْخُلُوا هَذِهِ الْقَرْيَةَ فَكُلُوا مِنْهَا حَيْثُ شِئْتُمْ رَغَدًا وَادْخُلُوا الْبَابَ سُجَّدًا وَقُولُوا حِطَّةٌ نَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ خَطَايَاكُمْ وَسَنَزِيدُ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Ayah 58. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He ordered them. So after 40 years in the desert of wandering, Allah finally forgave them and allowed them to go into the land of Philistine, basically. Right? So He asked them to enter into it anywhere you want from, and enter through the doors in sujood, basically, or make sujood when you enter. وَقُولُوا حِطَّةٌ, and praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, نَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ, and Allah will forgive you. وَسَنَزِيدُ الْمُحْسِنِينَ, and we will increase the righteous ones. لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. The more you thank Allah, Allah more gives you. The more you are obedient to Allah, the more Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you. The more ihsan you have, the more blessings you have. Right? So Allah is telling us this. وَسُمِيَتِ الْقَرْيَةِ قَرْيَةً لِأَنَّهَا تَجْمَعْ أَهْلُهَا. And the qarya, the town is called qarya because it brings people together. وَمِنْهُ الْمِقْرَاء لِلْحَوْضِ, like the basin basically. لِأَنَّهَا تَجْمَعْ الْمَاء, because it puts together water. When you pour water in it, it keeps together water. Qarya comes from that word. قال ابن عباس رضي الله عنه هي ريحا وهي قرية الجبارين كان فيها قوم من بقية عاد يقال لهم العمالقة. So basically they found a people there, like a harsh, strong people. They were supposed to be the descendants of Ad, and they were called the Amaliqa. And it's even in the Bible too, but these, some say, are like the ancestors of the Philistines, right? And the people of Syria and Urdun. Bayt al-Maqdis, Al-Urdun, Palestine, these are some of the places that were the lands that the children of Israel came to, and they found these people. And some say Sham, in general. Sham composes of Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, and Palestine. فَكُلُوا مِنْهَا حَيْثُ شِئْتُمْ رَغَدًا مُوَسَّعًا عَلَيْكُمْ. Like eat from wherever you like, basically. وَادْخُلُوا الْبَابَ يعني بابا من أبواب القرية. Enter from one of the doors of the town. وكان لها 7 أبواب, and they had 7 doors. سجدا أي راكعا خضوعا منحنين. Basically, like enter like bowing, basically. Not literal sujood, because some scholars say that it would be difficult to enter the town when to sajidan, right? But humbled and raki'an, you can enter into the town, like enter the doors like that. So basically to enter like humbly and thankfully to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and praising. وَقُولُوا حِطَّةٌ قَالَ قُتَادَ حِطٌّ عَنَّا خَطَايَانَا. Some say that it is hitta, like to take away our misdeeds, our bad deeds, right? حط عنا. And it is نوع من الاستغفار, a way of making tawbah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Ibn Abbas said, حِطَّةٌ is لا إله إلا الله, لأنها تحيط الذنوب, because لا إله إلا الله, it takes away the dhunub. The best speech that you can say is لا إله إلا الله, and every time you say it, it wipes away your sins, because it's a good deed. So it lifts you up a daraja, it takes away your sins, and it gives you closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. نَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ خَطَايَاكُمْ. Basically, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He forgives them and He gives them cover for their sins. Al-Maghfirah tastur al-dhunub. Al-Maghfirah, forgiveness, it covers the sins, basically. وَسَنَزِيدُ الْمُحْسِنِينَ ثَوَابًا مِنْ فَضْلِنَا. When we give the muhsineen, the righteous ones, the good ones, more ajr from us. فَبَدَّلَ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا قَوْلًا غَيْرَ الَّذِي قِيلَ لَهُمْ فَأَنزَلْنَا عَلَى الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا رِجْزًا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ بِمَا كَانُوا يَفْسُقُونَ. So look what they did. Even after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave them for the shirk they did. Even after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave them from asking to see that which they're not supposed to see about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave them for basically like disrespecting His ni'mah of the manna and salwa, right? He keeps Allah forgiven. And then instead of being thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, instead of asking for more forgiveness, فَبَدَّ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا قَوْلًا غَيْرَ الَّذِي قِيلَ لَهُمْ. The unjust ones from them, they changed فَغَيِّرُوا الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُم. The ones who were like unjust, they changed the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, قَوْلًا غَيْرَ الَّذِي قِيلَ لَهُم وذلك أنهم بدلوا قول الحطة بالحنطة فقالوا بلسانهم حطانا سمقانا أي حنطة حمراء استخفافا بأمر الله تعالى. So instead of saying حطة, they said حنطة, like a grain basically. They're making fun of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, making fun of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's command. أعوذ بالله. So basically, instead of entering like in a way of humbleness and khudu' and sujood and ruku', they turned around and they entered backwards with their behinds, astaghfirullah. And instead of saying hittatun, they said hintatun, right? Making fun of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A'udhu billah. And this is the way that they have been doing for a long time. Twisting the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like we said, we're going to study more, how they changed the scripture. Killing of the anbiya, murdering the prophets and the messengers, and disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because they were the chosen people, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they were obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they were fulfilling their duties. But once they started changing, they became not the chosen people anymore. قيل بني إسرائيل ادخلوا الباب سجدا وقولوا حطة فبدلوا فدخلوا يزحفون على أستاهم وقال حبة أو حنطة في شعرة. So basically, instead of like entering like they were supposed to enter with sujood and khudu, they entered backwards on their behinds or with their behinds, and they said, like food or grains, instead of saying forgiveness for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فأنزلنا على الذين ظلموا رجزا من السماء. So we sent down أرسل الله عليهم طاعون فهلك منهم في ساعة 71,000. Allah, He sent down, because of this misdeed and these bad actions, He sent down a plague, and it killed 70,000 of them in 1 hour. بما كانوا يفسقون يعصون ويخرجون من أمر الله تعالى, because of their sinfulness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is a warning for us and for all of the ummah. If people continue to sin against Allah, Allah will forgive and forgive and forgive. But if you keep transgressing and you keep sinning, there will come a time when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send down His adab or His punishment. And it can come in the form of destruction, like natural disasters that we see, of floods or earthquakes. It can come down in the form of a plague. It can come down in ways that we don't even know. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, Al-Halim, the most forbearing and the most merciful and the most forgiving. And He gives us chance after chance after chance. But we don't want to be like the children of Israel and burn out our chances. So if you make a true tawbah, then stick on the right path. Be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do what you're supposed to do. Right? Allah, He won't take you to account. He gives you so many chances. There was one person who he stole at the time of Umar radiallahu anhu, and he was supposed to get his hand cut. And Umar said, have you stolen before? He said, no. He said, you're lying, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't expose somebody on the first time. And he said, Wallahi Amir al-Mu'mineen, you're right. I had stolen many times before. This is like, the 6th time or something like that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caused him to get the punishment. Right? So Allah, He gives us chances, but we should not, basically take it for granted that we will get another chance. And we should make tawbah before it's too late. And we said before the tawbah many times, to have ikhlas for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? You leave the sin for the sake of Allah. You stop the sin. You have regret in your heart, nadam, right? And you have the azima not to go back to that sin. And if it's a right for anybody, you return that right before it's too late. And we'll stop here. Inshallah, we finished the first 3 ruba's. And the next one, inshallah, we finished. نحن انتهينا من آية 59. Alhamdulillah. So if you have any, أختمنا, yeah, Alhamdulillah. وقفناها. If it's قصة قاموسة, we'll do next week, inshallah. We're going to stop here. Yes, مرة جاية, inshallah. Any questions or comments or suggestions or? Barakallahu feekum. طيب سبحانك الله وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Last time we finished 55. Last time we finished 55. 55.